Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this leading practices session, which is about the hidden gems in your Workday Prism Analytics and Workday Adaptive Planning deployments. As we talk about the products, just be aware if we talk about future roadmap elements, please do make your decisions based on what we have in the product today. I'm Brandon Smith-Daigle, part of our product strategy team, focused on workforce reporting and analytics and planning strategy. And I'm joined by two Workday experts that I'm so excited to be here and to be able to share their experiences and with stories from customers as well. So with that, I'll let Kalpa and Chris introduce themselves.
Thank you, Brandon. Hello, everyone. My name is Kalpa Subramanian. I am the Senior Product Manager for Prism Analytics under Workday Analytics. I speak with customers like you on a day-to-day basis, understand your vision, marry that up with Workday's innovation, and present to you the Prism Analytics product roadmap. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Tonkin out of the Chicago area. I lead a team of Workday Adaptive Planning consultants who deliver financial and workforce planning solutions for our large enterprise customers. I'm thrilled to be here today, and I actually think this might be the first time in a year I've had a collared shirt on.
That's fantastic. All right. Thanks, Chris and Kalpa. We have a packed agenda today. So we're going to first kick off with, why do you need continuous insights in planning? And then how can you level up using the hidden gems in Prism Analytics and Workforce Planning? We'll recap, and then we'll have some Q&A. We're no shortage of things that we need to do to continue to move through the pandemic, but leading HR practices are recognizing the need for agility and to not only focus on the now, but the long-term resilience of your organization, and to be able to come out of the present state stronger and with an eye towards the future and the ability to react and respond very rapidly for whatever comes in the future. And that's where building the muscle to be able to continuously analyze and plan comes in. Leading organizations are able to bring insight to their business leadership, help them plan for the future, contemplate which strategies will have the best outcomes, and then take action. And that's so essential to be able to build that cyclical muscle to be able to react, respond, and truly become proactive as well. We know that your organization and within your organizations have many different areas that you might need to be focused on, whether that's belonging and diversity, skills, engagement, and that ultimately using planning and analytics to drive better people decisions, no matter what the situation, is the ultimate goal. And we think that by bringing accelerated data and insights into that picture, and then being able to plan with that information, leverage workforce planning, and develop those business strategies, and then acting on those decisions, whether that's within Workday Talent Optimization, Workforce Management, or the myriad of other places that you need to take action. Bringing those all together really drives results and helps you to be more competitive. And so as we walk through some of the examples and best practices of where you can leverage Prism Analytics and workforce planning, we want you to think about it in terms of building your baseline capability and being able to create a strong foundation, but still with a long-term eye towards the end game. Bolster that capability, bring in more people and participants into the process, and then finally break through and deliver results for your organization that really differentiate and help you compete in the long term. And so as we share some of the examples, we want you to know that many of the use cases really illustrate what our customers are doing to be successful, but that doesn't mean that's the only path. And that's the power and the beauty of Prism Analytics and Workforce Planning as platforms that will support whatever use case is core to you. But with that said, what does baseline look like if we were to start with some of those examples? You're building your HR practice for analytics and planning. You're trying to develop that vision and strategy. Where do you begin? Well, Chris and Kalpa have collected a lot of stories and information from a variety of customers. And I think for baseline, brought that together. And so Kalpa, if you wouldn't mind, maybe take it from here.
Absolutely, Brandon. Thank you. That is correct. Hello, everyone. In the next few minutes, we are going to see how analytics supports your organization's data management needs by baseline, bolster, or breakthrough techniques. As we illustrate some of these use cases implemented by real customers, we hope you uncover some hidden gems in your own planning and analytical implementation. In the next slide, we will discuss how Prism Analytics helps solve key business challenges. But first, what is Prism? Prism, in a nutshell, is the Workday Data Analytics Hub, which helps you bring in external data, combine it with internal Workday data, organize it, transform, curate the data to reveal key business insights. So with that, let's jump right into it. On this slide, in the top hemisphere, you see the top 6 focus areas. To help move your organization forward along these focus areas, you're needing data insights. These insights can be delivered using Prism. In the lower hemisphere, you see analytics use cases such as global payroll, merger and acquisition, total rewards. These are broad areas where analytical applications such as Prism, People Analytics, and a combination of visuals using discovery boards, reports, and dashboards could deliver the solutions your organization is seeking. On each of these categories, using Prism, you can bring in Workday data such as workforce data, compensation data, Workday performance data, and external data such as external sales data, external stock equity data. Blend all of these to deliver rich insights either to the individual employees themselves or to the entire organization or for executive leadership to help make those tactical as well as strategic business decisions. Because these are broad use cases, the breadth and depth of these is ultimately entirely up to you. Let's take a look at this in context of these stages. First, in the baseline stage, you have just started implementing Prism Analytics and you're developing a data strategy for your organization. We have seen that companies starting off on their journey begin with the fundamentals of running their business, such as total rewards, time and absence, productivity. Many of our new customers come from another system and they have data in their now legacy systems, and therefore people history, finance history are very common use cases as they gather that information, load it into Workday for trending, continuity, and supporting both strategic and tactical needs. Here again, the unparalleled advantages of Prism allows you to bring in external data and seamlessly blend it and transform and analyze it all within the context of Workday, all within the same Workday security model and distribution model. With that, Chris, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kalpa. So workforce planning, what is it? It's one of those special terms that can have a different definition depending on who you ask. Is it compensation planning? Is it diversity planning? Is it planning for your skills and skill building? If you ask me, I think the answer is all of the above. In my view, it's really anything that you're using to track your workforce as it stands today, or the workforce that you envision in the future in order to achieve your company goals. So this might be tracking compensation, headcount and FTE values, where people work, how people are working, their skills and talents and competencies, your org's ability to retool and rescale people to allocate them to new company initiatives, the makeup of your organization as it relates to race or gender or sexual orientation or physical abilities or otherwise. As we move forward, we're going to focus in on these 4 pillars here. So when we think about baseline for workforce planning, like Prism, it's all about creating that foundation. The goal is to be able to satisfy just about any workforce planning related question that you may have. Yes, we do want to achieve early value, but it needs to be expandable. One example use case here would be something like tracking headcount and cost of your existing workforce. This is a pretty fundamental use case, and it's often vital to ultimately feeding into a larger financial plan. Another relevant use case today that could be considered as part of a baseline approach would be a return to workplace use case. So evaluating the level of resourcing that may be able to return to your workplace, keeping in mind size of workplace, social distancing recommendations and the like, as well as figuring out who are critical on-site resources versus those resources that can remain remote for a foreseeable future. So these foundational use cases will typically include pulling an existing employee roster from HCM with some common details like their base salary, some bonus details, allow you to pull in FTE and headcount values, and it also captures essential work tag details like job profile and job group so you can support additional reporting and analysis. But even that can be a little bit overwhelming for customers, and we understand that, especially if there's no existing workforce planning process today. So speaking of some hidden gems, this is a big reason that we created one of our Launch Express offerings that we call our Workforce Planning Foundation. So this allows us to quickly populate specific elements from Workday HCM into adaptive planning and get immediate outputs from a modeling and a reporting perspective. It's a quick win to achieve some real value and be able to analyze your workforce, and it creates that strong foundation that we need to take it to the next level. This foundation is often rolled out to just a subset or a pilot group of the organization, which allows for feedback and getting additional buy-in. This slide here shows some of the key delivered elements in the darker color here in the middle that come out of the box with the Workforce Planning Foundation. The extensible elements here on the bottom, these are typically services-led add-ons or enhancements that are possible as you move beyond baseline. So as we think about moving beyond baseline, let's talk about what we mean by bolster. Brandon?
Yeah, Chris, you mentioned overwhelming and foundation, and I think you both did. And the real key element there is that your baseline phase is an opportunity to focus your results. And as you move to bolster your capability, you've been able to deliver some quick wins. And in fact, now the business is more interested and wants more from you when it comes to information and opportunities to collaborate, engage, and plan. And so with that, Kalpa, I know you've got some interesting stories, and Chris, you've got a customer story as well. So would love to just hear real world examples of Bolster.
That's right, Brandon. At this stage, we are in further forward deployment on these use cases. In this stage, more advanced problems are getting solved. Let's take a look at how that looks like for analytics and Prism. In the Bolster stage, some of the use cases that I want to highlight and particularly differentiate from baseline, from total rewards that we saw in baseline, now in Bolster, we are looking at pay equity. We are creating those hidden gems of data insight and going several layers deep. From time and absence management in baseline, now we are looking at overtime optimization and efficient scheduling. Let me illustrate this with a really good example. Land of Lakes has been one of our customers with Workday since 2017. They have Workday for Workforce and a different system for finance and planning. With over 10,000 employees, prior to implementing this bolstered analytic use case that we are about to talk about, there was a huge data gap between finance and human resources. Tying out the numbers would happen offline and via spreadsheets. And even then, it wasn't accurate or efficient. Well, with the power of Workday Prism Analytics, we helped bridge that gap. Prism was pivotal because of its ability to act as a data integration hub. Now, Land of Lakes is able to tie in financial information, both actual and budgeted, along with their workforce information. What is even cooler is that now they are able to glean effective insights for even better planning. Let's take a look at some of those hidden gems that Land of Lakes was able to unearth. Land of Lakes was able to get a unified and accurate budget versus actual headcount in one single view. Further, they were able to effectively plan and analyze better by looking at daily and monthly headcount versus headcount actuals versus budgeted headcount, and provide executive reports back month over month, day over day on how headcount is doing to plan. What's even brilliant is that these numbers tied out, they were accurate month over month, day over day. They expanded this headcount planning further on the workforce side by looking at recruiting key performance indicators, time tracking key performance indicators. In short, the change for Land of Lakes was night and day. I know, Chris, you have a really good customer example as well. So let me turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kalpa. That Land of Lakes use case really is smooth like butter. The Bolster here in this case is all about taking that foundation that we talked about in baseline and taking it to the next level and really starting to make it your own. So speaking of bridging HR to finance, an example use case here might include forecasting advanced compensation metrics. So planning for pensions or retirement, insurance and overtime, or maybe digging deeper on bonus equity payouts. These use a lot of those same foundational elements that we discussed for the baseline, but expand upon them. Another potential planning use case for Bolster might be diversity planning. So you're assessing your current workforce today against target metrics to ensure you have a truly diverse workforce. Or maybe it's workforce capacity planning. So your ability to deliver on the work that you anticipate based on the employees that you have coming in the door. This also more commonly includes pulling in data sets outside of just HCM, similar to what Kalpa referenced with the Land O'Lakes use case. You might have a connection to your general ledger, or maybe you're tying it in with another planning tool that supports a broader financial planning process. Of course, we'd recommend you do everything in Workday Adaptive Planning, but that's not every organization's reality just yet. And for some organizations, Bolster is really just about taking that baseline and making it company-wide instead of just to a subset or a pilot group. So here's an example of a customer that I really think fits that Bolster mold. So this is the large enterprise food and beverage company with about 40,000 employees. They replaced an Excel-based legacy process that was ugly. It was slow, it was difficult to manage, and they weren't getting a lot of value out of it. So getting all the details of their compensation was really key to them, and we solved that with Adaptive. The solution here involved base pay and benefits. We bolstered that with some additional bonus modeling and stock incentive projections. And then we tied their adaptive planning models in with other systems that the organization uses. They also have expectations of taking this and building upon it further because they want to break through. So question is, how do you break through? How do you take that baseline and bolster it and then get to the point where you're achieving maximum value and solving the key challenges that may be holding your organization back? Let's talk about breakthrough, Brandon.
Yeah, definitely. So now you've been able to build on that foundation. You've engaged more and more participants, gotten them very interested in both the information that you're able to deliver, combine, consolidate, and also participate in planning. And as Chris said, widen that. So how do you break through? What do you do to really take it to the next level? We talked about agility and ability to build resilience. As you have that foundation, you have that participation, now you can take it to the next level in terms of truly unifying all of that information and in fact carrying it through into full action and execution. And so here, I know I'm so excited to hear some of the stories that we've got. So I will turn it right back over to Kalpa to kick us off.
Thank you, Brandon. I am really thrilled about this breakthrough section. Here, customers perform several expert-level implementations, and their benefits are really exponential. Customers unearth diamonds with these business insights. Let's take a look at some of such categories. Prism Analytics is exemplary when using Workday-only data. But when you add in that external data, the power of Prism truly shines. That is what you're able to do with breakthrough use cases. Bringing in badging data from a badging system, capacity planning data, building floor plan data, supply chain data, and take Workday performance data to a whole new level. That is what we're talking about in this category. Let's illustrate this with an example. Lifetime Fitness has been a customer of Workday's since 2007 with over 19,000 employees. They've implemented quite a few use cases. I want to highlight two specific key initiatives. The first one is the Culture of Care dashboard. This Culture of Care dashboard was an executive on down employee care dashboard created by Lifetime by blending data about employees, customers, including diversity data, time tracking data, employee sentiment data, to keep a close eye on how the Lifetime employee base was truly doing. And they ultimately want to deliver the kind of employee experience that Lifetime envisioned. Another really cool use case that Lifetime did was to bring in badging data. This badging data combined with scheduling data allowed Lifetime to efficiently manage their labor. Although Lifetime did this use case pre-pandemic, this has now served even more benefits as we are all returning back to work in a hopefully post-pandemic era. Ultimately, Lifetime was able to create self-service options for their employees with respect to time tracking, leading to some significant labor savings. I could talk about this use case a lot more, but Chris, I know you have a really cool use case, so let me turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Kalpa. So for workforce planning, breakthrough is the ultimate level of maturity. So that detailed compensation forecasting that we talked about in Bolster might take on challenging PTO accrual processes or complex bonus and commission calcs. We start to dive into evaluation of your skills and competencies for your existing workforce and how you need to strategically realign to new skills and competencies based on overarching objectives. You can really start to look at build versus buy versus borrow analysis and the optimal approach to meet company goals. This may include activity-based planning, like pulling in details about expected customer calls or internet queries and how many customer reps you need to be able to respond to those. Or maybe re-evaluation of your span of control for support staff operations and making sure you have the right number of people leaders. This can also dive into some other workforce-related use cases like staffing models. So for example, I use Adaptive on a daily basis to ensure that I keep my consultants utilized, and it's hugely valuable for me. Another breakthrough-like option is the handling of acquisitions and divestitures and the associated people element that comes along with that. So what functions are redundant? Where can we identify synergies? What does the new overall compensation look like for NewCo? We'll actually talk about a neat example of this in just a moment. A neat customer example that we're working through right now, I really think fits this breakthrough mold. It's a large enterprise financial services company with about 300,000 employees. So their previous process was nearly non-existent. And there was no true ownership by HR, and the finance team was just using high-level assumptions to drive cost expectations. So this was really challenging for them to be able to respond to leadership's questions around the details of their workforce spend. And they also couldn't clearly identify skill gaps and training opportunities to upskill their people. So in this case, we're doing a phased rollout, which is the epitome of starting with that baseline and moving toward breakthrough on a steady basis. We began with the workforce planning foundation that we talked about earlier. Phase 2 is where we take that to the next level and we expand the compensation metrics that we're forecasting, which also allows the customer to load skills and competencies directly from HCM, and we can layer on attributes to those skills and competencies to call certain ones critical, truly necessary for them to deliver new offerings, automate processes, improve efficiencies. Evaluating these critical skills versus how their existing workforce actually matches up will allow them to do that build, buy, borrow analysis I referenced earlier to gauge how they get to the skill targets that they're looking for. So phase 3, they'll start to expand a little bit horizontally with use cases like the activity-based calculations. This is really exciting stuff, I tell you that. And speaking of exciting stuff, we want to talk a little bit about Huntington Bank now, which uses HCM in concert with planning and Prism to creatively solve some challenges that they had around acquisitions and divestitures. So I'll pass it back to Kalpa.
Absolutely, Chris. I am excited to share the Huntington Bank story. With over 25,000 employees, Huntington has been with Workday since 2019. Right around this time, Huntington Bank had been in major merger and acquisition mode, ultimately acquiring TCF Financial in 2020. During this time, especially as they started working with Workday, Huntington had been putting together the building blocks to fulfill their promise of being a people-first digitally powered bank. As Workday is positioned, as Prism is positioned as an integration data hub in their ecosystem, the Huntington team continued to invest heavily in an integrated data management infrastructure. When I mention all that, that seems like years in implementation, right? Nope, it only took 3 months with Prism. I'm simplifying this for the sake of time, but Huntington was able to eliminate hundreds of spreadsheets and manual processes as a result. Let's dive into this with a data flow diagram in this slide. As you can see, this is the data flow diagram, and data in Prism feeds into adaptive planning, and approved plans are fed back into Prism for reporting. The key here is that Prism is used in its fullest sense of an integration data hub. Imagine the chaos that something like a merger and acquisition can create. Huntington worked around all that by having an effective foundational data model, a full end-to-end integration, and having a centralized integration analytics data hub in the form of Prism. What used to take several days and almost 20 people now takes microseconds. Like me looking at this data flow diagram, I know there are some of you in this audience that would love to geek out over this a little bit more. But in the interest of time, let me turn it over to Brandon to bring us home.
Great. Thank you. So to recap, wherever you're at in this cycle of baseline, bolster, and breakthrough, wherever you're at as an organization, we hope this has been very useful for you to hear from other customers and where they've been able to leverage Workday Prism Analytics as well as adaptive planning in order to deliver results. And I'd like to just thank all of you for joining us. I'd like to thank Chris and Kalpa for an amazing set of stories that you've collected with our supporting team. And I'd also like to thank Huntington, Land O'Lakes, Lifetime, and for any of you that want to share your stories, whether you want to be named or not, we absolutely love hearing about how our customers are successful. And if this has been valuable for you, just think of future customers and how they can take advantage of Workday Prism and adaptive planning in order to drive their breakthrough results. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our Q&A session here. And I've been keeping up with some of them, but let me just really quick jump over to see if we have any new ones here that I haven't responded to. Okay, let's see here. All right, looks like this one, I'm going to point to you, Chris. So we've got a partner that they've worked with in the past, and they're wondering, can they use that same partner to deploy workforce planning solutions?
That's a good question. We do have a few partners that have been doing some really leading edge stuff with workforce planning. So there are definitely some opportunities there. But also, as you probably know about the Workday ecosystem, in order to drive quality, we do have a ramp process. So we have some organizations, some partners that are still in the ramp process related to workforce planning. So the best thing is to talk through the specifics of what you're looking for with your AE or your CSM or whomever you're engaged with on the Workday side, and we can lay out a good plan for you jointly.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chris. Let's see here. Next one for you, Kalpa. So when's a good time to start using Prism? Do you have a recommendation about before or after they deploy HCM?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Brandon. Oftentimes, although we've seen quite a few customers uptake Prism after HCM, our best practice recommendation and something that we are seeing more and more customers uptake is starting with Prism in phase one during their HCM deployment, or if they're doing Fin first, then during their Fin first deployment, because what that helps them unlock is you would be able to take all of the data that you need to import over from all of these other potentially disparate systems and bring it into Workday in a very seamless, performant manner. And that is what Prism helps unlock by doing in a phase one deployment. So we would absolutely recommend, if you're not yet deployed with HCM and you are planning your phase one, to update Prism in that phase one, because the advantages are just exponential in that space.
Cool. Yeah, that's an interesting one, Kalpa, because I think a lot of times people think, well, I'll get to that later. So your point is there's an important part of doing it early on. I like the continuous history. I hear that a lot too. So, okay, let's see here. Got another planning one, Chris. So they've got a pretty talented team, and they're curious about whether they could if they could start using adaptive planning on their own. And is there anything they should be thinking about if they decide they want to maybe self deploy?
Yeah, so typically we don't recommend deploying planning on your own. There's a level of experience, I think, and knowledge of the tool that my team brings to the table or our partners bring to the table. But I think there are multiple ways that we can kind of creatively approach these deployments. We may be able to augment with some of your team members, especially if cost is a concern. Or maybe we start with a baseline in terms of a Workday-led deployment, and then allow you to kind of move into that bolster and breakthrough category by doing some additional build on top of that after you have some additional training from our core teams.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. All right. I think we've got time for one more really quickly, and that is, and I might take this one. How is Prism different from Adaptive? So I would say they're very complementary. Prism is intended for high volume data blending between Workday data and external data. So large volumes of data, you're going to be doing analysis over time and trending. And where Adaptive is best suited is it's a multi-dimensional modeling environment, right, where you're able to do planning. Oftentimes that's aggregated to a certain extent, very much so tailored with Adaptive towards collaborative planning, being able to engage a lot of people and do what if scenarios and really structure it that way. So they are very much so complementary in terms of one, high volume data hub, any external data you want to bring in, and then optionally join to Workday data, and then interconnect that with Adaptive, like you saw with Huntington, where then Adaptive is really powerful on that planning side of things in use case. And so you're able to really bring those together. So I know we're almost on time. Chris, Kalpa, anything you think I missed on that particular one that you'd want to call out?
No, I think your point is spot on. You know, the granularity within Prism is typically much more detailed. You might be planning, you might have detail at a detailed SKU level in Prism, whereas you're planning at a product group level within planning, right? So you typically don't want to have that same level of detail because it's just it's not valuable to plan at that super granular detail. You're guaranteed to miss if you get too detailed.
That's right.
Absolutely. I think, Brandon, you covered it. And high volume, high data, great detail. That is what Prism is all about, like you said.
Great. All right. Well, I know we're out of time. Again, want to thank everybody that joined us. Thank you for submitting questions. And we really appreciate the opportunity to share the experiences that we have and our customers have with Prism Analytics and Adaptive Planning.